Look at what all the clubs do. City don't do this. City don't sign players in their late 20s, early 30s from clubs who have been more successful than them. They buy, maybe the best player from a team sort of an echelon below themselves. They don't buy, Real Madrid's best player from 3 years ago.
I know, yeah.
I don't blame Casemiro and Varane in particular. I just think they're good examples of bigger picture stuff that we've seen over the last decade. You get in Di Maria. Well, he's just won the Champions League with Real Madrid. He was the man of the match in the final, and now he's coming to a team that are sort of the worst they've been in 30 years. What's the motivation there to improve and to impress?
Or someone who is outstanding and never really done it. Van Persie.
Yeah.
When we bought him, he hadn't won the Premier League with Arsenal.
No.
And yet, he was older, but he was more experienced and wise.
Yeah.
And the move for him was simply because he was the missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And he was in the age range we're talking about now, but he hadn't experienced success in terms of lifting trophies. Definitely not the Premier League. So that decision was brilliant.
Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is Uncensored. That is Joe McGrath. Yes. And today we are looking at the age of Manchester United squad. We're this time again. Every 2 years we repeat this cycle where we have to look at a rebuild. We've got new owners. Who knows what's going on with the manager? We're not even going to really talk about that today, which we could do.
Yeah.
But we're going to be looking at the age of Manchester United squad and what do we need to do about it.
Well, because if I'm from the outside in, and I didn't really even consider this before arriving here today when you're saying, right, this is what we're going to do. I didn't think we had too much of an aging squad. I know there's certain players that we had to look for replacements soon. Your Casemiro's, your Varanes. Obviously, you've got Johnny Evans, which I think balances the average out a little bit, much being 37 years old.
Isn't it?
I thought we were doing all right, but are you here to tell me, no, Joe, you're wrong?
Well, it's not. The thing is, United's average age is about 3 years older than Chelsea's average age, which is the youngest in the league. Even Arsenal, it's their sort of starting squad is substantially younger. They've got some older players on the bench, which brings the overall squad up. But when you look at Arsenal, it's a very young team, very few players over 30.
Yeah.
It's a team that's sort of on the rise. And we'll get into the full picture here, but just to start off, this isn't a new idea that I'm bringing out. This isn't Joe's big theory about how to revamp a squad. Look at what Ralph Rangnick said a couple of years ago when he was at United. He talks about this generally, not just in terms of United, but he likes players who are on their first or second contract as a professional. So not players who are on their big, 300 grand a week.
Yeah.
I'm in my late 20s, I want that big payday. I'm in my early 30s, I want that big payday. He likes players that are either just come through the academy or signing that second, maybe 100, 150 grand a week contract. Players who are still to prove themselves, who have got that energy and that drive.
Yeah.
Where instead of going, and we'll get to specifics because I don't want this to be a sort of anti-Casemiro, anti-Varane thing. Because they've both had incredible games for Man United. But if we're looking at the bigger picture, what it takes to build a squad, what it takes not just to build a squad, but to rebuild the mentality and the sort of energy of a club, all the teams that have gone from being poor for decades or not at it for decades, who then come through with new squads and then start winning things, typically it's with younger players. You need a core of young players in there who are sort of trying to prove themselves. Do you think that, first of all, when you look at Arsenal, if you look at them 18 months ago, it would be easy to point out a lot of flaws, as I did, as I think a lot of us did. The word unproven is used all the time with Arsenal. And yet, slowly, they're starting to prove themselves, aren't they? Because they've got this energy, they've got this sort of youthful exuberance to them.
Of course. And the thing is with that is there's those relationships you build up with people as well.
Yeah.
There's those that chemistry that you can have with teammates that are going through the same motions as you, or even if you can help younger teammates out because you've done that a year or two ago. So that bond is often, because it is such an importance in a game of football that you are a team, and individuals can obviously shine and do amazing things and can often win you the games, but it's that team mentality that can really push you forward and get you to another level. I think Arsenal have done that very, very well by bringing in these youngsters, having a young coach as well in Arteta, who is in his second job as manager after. So you've got
his first job as manager. Isn't it?
Oh yeah, did he go from? Was he assistant at Everton, or was I?
I think he was assistant. Yeah.
Sorry, so his first job. So he is finding his feet as well. I feel like they've got this sort of us against the world sort of look on life when it comes to the league. They're taking on Pep's Man City, they're taking on Liverpool's Klopp, and now they're like, right, this is us and we've got a fight on our hands. And I think they have used the youth very, very well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see where they'll all go. But you never really hear rumours of the Arsenal team being dismantled a little bit. You always see that they're quite a strong unit, and you think that this team now that we're seeing here, whatever happens at the end of this league, the core players may still be fighting for the league in 2-3 years' time.
You don't imagine that they're going to leave anytime soon. And part of that is because they're in their early 20s.
Yeah.
Let's just use Saka as an example. Let's say he doesn't spend his whole career at Arsenal and he wants to go somewhere else. He wants to go to Real Madrid, Barcelona, even City, United, whatever. Who knows what the landscape will be like in a few years' time. But you don't assume he's going to leave now because he's 22?
Yeah.
So you think, well, even if it's a player who eventually will leave, he's probably going to be there till he's 24, 25, and then you make that move.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Like, you look at City and they've still got a relatively young squad, but it's one that's slightly older than United's now, so it's not a hugely young squad. They've got young players in there, but then you've got players like De Bruyne, you've got players like Bernardo Silva, Kyle Walker, these people who, if they're used to winning, you keep them in. But if you've got the older players who aren't used to winning, you start hearing rumours about, he's going to go, he's not up to it, this, that and the other. So I want to go through a few sort of United players in a minute and look at, is it time for them to move on? Should United be changing things a little bit? Because you look at what Liverpool did. I know they had a few sort of older players. They had people like Lovren, and they had, I'm trying to even think. But almost all of that squad, when they first started coming through under Klopp, started winning again. You think of that team, it's, was it Klein to start with at fullback? But then it was Alexander-Arnold. It was Van Dijk, who was one of the older players in the team at, I think, 28 when they signed him. It was Matip or Gomez next to him. It was Robertson, who was younger at the time. It was Henderson, who was in his late 20s, but he was an academy player. They got Fabinho, and I think he was mid-20s. Different players. Wijnaldum, another one, was sort of mid-20s. And then the front line, Mane, Salah, Firmino, were all in their mid-20s when they first got there. Yeah. It wasn't a team full of 31, 32, 33-year-olds. Look back at the great United teams, and if you name the sort of the legends of the Premier League era, obviously not including the academy players because they've been there since they were kids, but the likes of sort of Roy Keane, Rio Ferdinand, Wayne Rooney, Cristiano Ronaldo, none of these players, and if you think through your head, other than like Van der Sar, they were all signed when they're either early or mid-20s.
Yeah, we got them.
There are no United legends that I can think of, except Van der Sar, but goal is different, who was signed in their 30s that went on to be a legend at United in the great era. It didn't happen. You need young players with that energy coming through. And, I don't mean this as an insult to Varane or Casemiro or Eriksen or whatever, because sometimes you need experience to come in and to kind of pull you through a little bit. But I think if we're really looking to rebuild and to focus on the future, having players on 5-year contracts who you bought when they were 30 is a bad idea.
It's a bad idea, but those ideas have been just staring us in the face for many years now, all the way since Ed Woodward was still in charge. Well, you get this announcement online that we've signed an extension to a player's contract, and you think, blimey, really? Yeah. Certain players, you think, really, and they've been quite disasters. Really, the money we've wasted. I mean, you look at maybe one example. I know he gets a bit of stick, but Phil Jones constantly getting contract after contract. Where really we never really gave us the money we paid for him in terms of his wages. I see that sort of buying in young and then working them into the team. But there's also a level of trust that an older player does bring you, I guess. Yeah. I think when you talk about Kyle Walker and you talk about Man City, you do look at his age and you do think, Pep would have possibly looked at bringing someone younger and embedding them in a little bit more. But he has trust. Yeah. In every player he has.
He was signed when he was in his mid-20s. Yeah. De Bruyne was signed when it was 24, 25 when he signed. Older, But it wasn't 28, 29.
No.
But teams that are sort of working their way through, you look at a lot of those players who were there originally when City started doing well, Company, Silva, Aguero, these sorts of players were signed in their early and mid-20s.
Yeah.
United have got this habit of Zlatan's, Cavani's,
of course,
Casemiro's, Eriksen's. It doesn't work.
One of the areas of the pitch that are interesting for United, I think, is the defenders, because apart from our sort of left backs and right backs, those sort of centre back partnerships that we've built over time, more recently, you do sort of buy them in, don't you?
Yeah.
You can't really think of an academy player that's come through the ranks. Obviously, we'll look at Rashford now. We'll look at Garnacho. They can lead the line for United.
Yeah.
I find it hard to think back of a centre defender we've brought in when he was like 16, 17 and are still being there, with a partnership.
United haven't got an amazing track record through their history, or certainly modern history of academy centre-backs.
Yeah.
It's sort of an area that, weirdly, when you can think of full-backs, you can think of central midfielders, you think of wingers in particular. But United don't have a massive history of bringing through centre-backs.
We did try a little bit with Blackett and players
Phil
like
Jones
that.
obviously wasn't an academy player, but we bought him young.
Yeah.
And you tried to bring in a teenager and bring him through. This show is sponsored by Manscaped. It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it is the new Performance Package 5.0 Ultra featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, and using our code Paddock20 at checkout, you can get 20% off and free shipping. Joe, Manscaped are the global leaders in the below-the-belt grooming.
Yeah.
Millions and millions and millions of men trust them across the world. But tell me about your old grooming routine and compare that to
Well, it's
your new
weird
one.
because you brought up, is it a plane, is it a bird? I used to use planes and birds to shave my balls.
You did, didn't you? You used to have
it never worked.
I remember I came around to your house once and I could hear loads of tweet. And then I came up and you had, and I'll be honest, I'll just say it as it is.
Awful. It was dark days.
You had fishing wire that had been sort of twisted and coiled around the legs of sort of 7 or 8 blackbirds. You'd then attach them to a tennis racket, and you would lower that tennis racket into your worm-filled pubic area. They would then eat away, slowly chipping and pecking at the pubes until they were down to a level you were happy with. Environmentally, sort of RSPCA-wise, it was a nightmare, wasn't it?
And that's why I'm so happy I found Manscaped.
Because Manscaped do the same job.
They do the same job.
The same job as the 12 birds and the worm feed and all
the
that.
Boeing 747, that was an awful day.
Where you sort of tied all of your pubes into a knot on a bit of dental floss, wasn't it?
Yeah,
you tied that dental floss
horrific.
to the landing gear of a Boeing 747, stood on Manchester Airport and just the ultimate pluck. Took everything off at once.
It was, I mean, it worked, but I wouldn't do it again.
It's unwieldy.
That's
Whereas with
why.
Manscaped, you've got the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra with two blades. It's got the traditional trimming blade, which sort of takes you down to the
For the traditionals.
For the traditionals. And it's also got the foil close shave blade as well. So if you want to go deep, you can do that with Manscaped. Not just is there that, there's the crop soother, the crop toner. They're sort of liquid formations to help your balls smell and look fantastic. And you also get the Boxers 2.0 and the Shed 2.0 travel bag.
Those.
So you can put it all together. The Boxers are fantastic.
Unbelievable.
We don't talk about them enough. And if that wasn't enough, there's also the Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer, which will take all these nasty little... Mine looks like sort of bracken, like a Scottish hillside when I let it go.
Really?
It's full of, just holly and sort of just a mess. But with the Weed Whacker 2.0, I don't have to worry about any of that.
No, you don't.
And with us, you can use the code Paddock20 to get 20% off and free shipping at checkout. The link is in the description. Go and check it out. Get rid of your old, disgusting, out-of-date grooming habits and start with Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. I want to go through some players in the squad now and look at whether we think that this sort of player is going to be here sort of longer term. And we kind of looked at this a little bit before, but with the view of the sort of the age and the players. So someone like Varane and Casemiro, first of all, I almost feel like Casemiro's reputation this season has taken a massive hit. Where last season he was a sort of an example of professionalism. He's won us a trophy, scored in the Carabao Cup final, scored some important goals, was brilliant for a lot of the games last season. And then this season the performances have dropped off. And all of a sudden the narrative is his heart in it?
Well,
have his legs gone? All these things you hear about older players.
With Casemiro, for me, and it's interesting. I've been reading a little bit on other managers and what they talk about as the perfect squad size. And I think we've done this in the past where we can become a bit like, you ever see those like shows? Stacey Solomon's doing one at the minute where UK's biggest hoarders, where they just can't get rid of stuff.
I've seen
I feel like we could be that squad. We just keep like little bits around.
They basically empty. It's always a family, isn't it? It's always man, wife, kids. Everyone I've seen.
And the house is crazy full of stuff.
Crazy full of stuff. And what they do is they've got basically like an aircraft hangar, a massive warehouse, and they empty every single item in the house into this aircraft hangar, piece by piece, just on the floor.
Yeah.
You zoom out, it looks like someone spilled like a load of Lego on the floor, but it's all in like nice rows, and they have to go through and bin stuff and keep stuff, don't they?
Yeah, of course they do. And I think like if United at one point had an aircraft hangar, we'd have seen a lot of players we would like to keep, and that probably would have been like 11 or 12, 13 of them.
Yeah.
Then there would have been a lot in the rubbish, wouldn't there? Because you're thinking, actually, Stacey Solomon would go to Ten Hag. Do you really need him?
Yeah.
And when push comes to shove, you're probably like,
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't really know why it is.
What a show that would be, by the way.
The thing is, I might need him.
Yeah,
if someone gets injured, I might need him. United are very much in a position of, we might need him.
But here's the thing with Casemiro, and I think what my earlier point was like the perfect squad size, is we need to know if Casemiro is up for playing the role of we might need you kind of footballer. If he wants to play week in, week out, it's a tricky situation for him to be such an experienced player in the dressing room and being upset, because that can obviously lead to a little bit of mood in the dressing room. So if Casemiro is fully on board for sticking around and being a squad player, then he's obviously a very valuable asset. Yeah. If he wants to play week in, week out, and Ten Hag is like, well, you're not, because I need to start moving you on a little bit. You're older. Yeah. If he starts throwing his toys out the pram, he becomes more of a problem for United than an asset.
You can't have
he'll start influencing younger players. Go, fucking, I'm fuming here.
You can't have a 32-year-old who's one of the most highly paid players at the squad not starting.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's literally just money that you're burning, isn't it? Yeah. And I think with Casemiro, he's getting a bit of an unfair stick, and this whole thing of wanting him to leave and all that. It's not even a sort of a him thing as much as it is sort of take Casemiro out and look at what this deal is. Yeah. It's a 5-year deal for someone, or 4-year with an optional 5th-year deal for someone who's 30. It's 70 million or up to 70 million quid. It's 300 odd grand a week. It is someone who, and I've said this before, but if you're Casemiro, just basic human psychology and motivation, right? When he was at Real Madrid, he's 23, 24 years old. He's looking at a club where he goes, this club is bigger than me. These players, Modric and Kroos and Ramos and whoever, Marcelo as it was when he first got there, and Ronaldo and Bale and Benzema.
This is such a legacy.
They are bigger than me. I am a small piece in this machine.
Yeah.
I am desperate to show that I am a top player, that I can do this, I can fit in with this team. Then you start winning Champions Leagues, then Ronaldo goes, then Marcelo goes, then Bale goes. Yeah. Then all of a sudden you're one of the biggest, Varane goes, Ramos goes. Yeah. You're one of the biggest names in that squad. And then just at the sort of your height, 30 years old, should just be in that prime, maybe sort of the back end of your prime, you're gone. Tchouaméni comes in, Camavinga comes in, and you go to Man United, who haven't won a league title in 10 years, or 9 years at the time he arrived, haven't won a Champions League in, 15 years nearly. Yeah. All of a sudden, you're on more money than you've ever been on, in a worse squad than you've been at for the last decade, and you're expected to still be as motivated as you were when you were that 23-year-old trying to prove your place at Real Madrid. It makes sense to me, just from a psychological perspective, that he's taking a bit more of a risk with his passing, that he's pushing up the pitch a bit more, because I won't mind getting a goal, I can do this, rather than being that disciplined, all-action defensive midfielder we saw for Real Madrid. Yeah. Now I'm the highest paid player here. It's hard to keep that motivation in an older man who's undoubtedly, he's left the prime. Real Madrid was the prime of Casemiro's career. Unfortunately, we have to say that. So how could he possibly be as motivated as he was there? And do United really need that?
And he's done it as well, hasn't he? He's done it.
I don't even blame him. I guess any human on earth would be the same. It's impossible, except those absolute freak people like Ronaldo or certain people who just have the motivation is me. The motivation is my numbers, my stats, my running, my legs, my legacy. But unless you're the 1% of the 1%, of course you don't put quite as much effort in. You don't sprint for that final thing. You don't necessarily, willing to risk a calf strain for that tackle, for that last man.
You do also see it in some of his decision makings when he's going on a one-on-one with a player and decides, I'm going to take this one out.
I'm just going to dive in.
3 red cards last year or something like that? A total of a lot of but he's not asked, is he?
I don't know. I think he must.
No, I mean that on a discipline point of view. I get it. If he was to retire now, he'd have an incredible career.
Yeah, he's still one of the best defensive midfielders of all time. So that's the thing. And again, the same can be said for Varane. Varane, at the peak of his powers, was winning 3 Champions Leagues in a row, winning the World Cup in the middle of that for France. He's since retired from international football, which is undoubtedly a sort of a step down in responsibility. He's playing for a club who hasn't won a league in a decade, playing for a club who hasn't won a Champions League in 15 years. Do you think that Rafael Varane has got quite the same margin of intensity as he would have done at Real Madrid. It would be impossible to think that he would. Yeah. And I'm not even blaming him. I'm not blaming Casemiro. But I just think that you need people who are desperate to prove themselves.
100%.
Not people who are trying to cling on to maybe the player they were 18 months or 2 years or 5 years ago. You need people who are coming up and going, I'm one of the best players in the world, not, oh, I used to be pretty good.
Well, put it this way. Do you know the iconic photo of like Manu and Garnacho and Højlund?
Exactly.
That is an incredible photo. Say last season when we still had, or a season back, we had Ronaldo and you had Casemiro and Varane. Say they replicated that photo, for United and did that. I'd think, oh, that's a cool photo.
Yeah.
But it doesn't excite me as the photo of Højlund, Garnacho and Mano, because that's the future.
Yeah.
Whereas that is a little bit of a legacy shot. Look at where we're in a peak. We've done the best of our careers.
The old boys.
The old boys
back
club.
Together,
You know what I mean? So if they did that for in a United shirt, I think that's cool. I would be like buzzing. It would be iconic. But the same three players doing it in this season that are young and hungry and are ready to hopefully spend a lot of their career at Old Trafford, that excites me more as a fan. And I think it excites the coaches more and the manager more because they know that they're in safe hands. Whereas maybe, even in terms of, the coaches that Casemiro and Varane have played under, Ten Hag might find that a little bit intimidating. Do you know when you're now a boss of someone and you go, well, I've had this and I've played under him and I've played under him, and you think, fucking hell, they're better managers than me. Oh, Ten Hag might become a better manager one day. But at the moment, there must be a slight little bit of intimidation going. Yeah. So it all adds up to an interesting mix of good footballers coming to United, amazing talent. But are they really, if things don't work out, are they really that fussed?
And also,
because they've done it.
The other thing as well is, and this isn't just let's just paint a picture because we're United fans who are looking at something that's demonstrably poor in terms of United's performances this season. So let's find a reason why it's poor.
Yeah.
Look what all the clubs do. City don't do this. City don't sign players in their late 20s, early 30s from clubs who have been more successful than them.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I know obviously there aren't many clubs who are more successful than them now, but they don't buy big names from big clubs.
No.
They buy, maybe the best player from a team sort of an echelon below themselves. They buy Dortmund's best player. Yeah. They buy Wolves' best player. Yeah. They buy Tottenham's best player. They don't buy Real Madrid's best player from 3 years ago.
I know, yeah.
There were rumours of him going for Ronaldo, so, obviously, but that didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
And, they didn't get those sorts of players in. They get 25, 26-year-olds. Look at Grealish, you get Villa's best player. You look at, what's his name, Gvardiol. You get, was it RB Leipzig, wasn't it, where he's at? You get their best player. Like, that's what United used to do. And what you have there is people who are still trying to prove themselves, and that is a massive thing in terms of buying with the manager as well. You can't have someone who, even subconsciously in their head, is going, not as good as Ancelotti.
Yeah.
It's not good. And again, I don't blame Casemiro and Varane in particular. I just think they're good examples of bigger picture stuff that we've seen over the last decade. You get in Di Maria, well, he just won the Champions League with Real Madrid. He was the man of the match in the final, and now he's coming to a team that are sort of the worst they've been in 30 years. What's the motivation there to improve and to impress? You need people who are coming up. I mean,
of course. Get into or just quickly on that, or someone who is outstanding and never really done it. Van Persie.
Yeah.
When we bought him, he hadn't won Premier League with Arsenal.
No.
And yet he was older, but he was more experienced and wise.
Yeah.
And the move for him was simply because he was the missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And he was in the age range we're talking about now, but he hadn't experienced success in terms of lifting trophies. Definitely not the Premier League. So that decision was brilliant because he then goes on to win us the Premier League, and then he tops it off.
Yeah, he does. And he was older, but he still had something to prove. I think that's the crucial thing.
Yeah. He still has something to prove.
Yeah. Look at Liverpool and City in particular. When is the last time they signed a player that had a more successful last 5 years than they had? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what? The only one who did, the one that immediately springs to mind is Thiago. And that signing was a disaster.
Yeah,
I know that's obviously injuries and other things, but you sign older players who'd been brilliant at Bayern, who'd been brilliant where he'd been before, comes in, never really worked. That success is built on players willing to prove themselves. Let's go through a few players then, and look at whether it's the time to move them on, whether the rot has set in a little bit for some of these players, and whether you think that United kind of need to move away from either people who have slightly past their best, or people who have almost spent too much of their prime years in a failing team, because I think that can be hurtful as well. Amrabat, first up, what do you reckon?
He's not going to be next season. No, he's not going to be here next season. I think sometimes I see Amrabat play, and I think he understands what his role is this year, and he understands that if this was a better or more organised Manchester United, he wouldn't have his place here. I think he's done an okay job for us, but I think for our ambitions next season, for a direction that we want to move in, he shouldn't really be here next year.
Jadon Sancho.
Do you think there's a bit too much? I think the interesting one for me was going to be with Ten Hag, and if Ten Hag is the manager of Manchester United next year. Because I feel like there is a relationship breakdown between Sancho and Ten Hag, isn't there? Or rumoured to be, with certain things being said and quotes left, right and centre. I don't know if they're true or not. But if the relationship has broken down between them two, and Ten Hag is the manager next year, you'd think that probably is the end of Sancho.
It has to be.
What if a new manager comes in?
I think more importantly, Sancho's relationship with United fans has broken down.
Do you think?
He's seen as someone now who's been given, whether rightly or wrongly, the public image of Jadon Sancho at Man United is a bloke who's been given multiple chances, who clearly doesn't have the desire, the work rate, the effort that is needed to be a top United player, and maybe doesn't even have the talent. But I think talent is the thing that we've seen the most from, certainly in his career. But when it's been tested in his ability to apply himself even through the bad times, it's been questioned multiple times by multiple people.
If a manager comes in and wants him, because he's still 24, 25. He's getting to that point now where he's reaching that third contract, as you say, even though his contract at the minute is, I think, astronomical. So if a manager does come in, this is me saying I want Ten Hag out, this is me saying if stuff happens before the end of the season, that's the only way I see him possibly staying at United. If Ten Hag's still the boss, I think he's gone.
Yeah, me too. Next up then, Victor Lindelof. This is an interesting one. Where he's been here, 5, 6, 7...
Yeah, he's been an interesting player for Manchester United, and we're going to speak about Martial a little bit later on as well, aren't we? And they're players that have got years under their belt at the club. In fact, if it was in the 80s and the 90s, they'd be having a testimonial come the end of their tenure. But I'd never feel like he lived up to, being one of, when we do a list of maybe the all-time best centre-backs United have ever had, I've seen him really, maybe it's unfairly, down in the bottom half of the table. But sometimes he steps up.
But that's not enough, though.
That's not enough. For our ambition, it should be higher than that.
He's the sort of transfer we're talking about, by the way. What was he, 22, 23 when we got him? He's an up-and-coming younger player from Benfica who's got a good track record.
He was good.
He was a good player, but it didn't work. No. And I do think that if he's 5, 6, 7 years into his United career, he's in the peak of his years as a player. What is he, 28, 29 years old now? If you're not starting when everyone's fit...
maybe, and he could do, and maybe his own... I mean, I think what happens is, or what has happened in the past is we've give players that maybe don't deserve the big money some decent... And I think Lindelof will be looking around at other options and think, but I'm not going to get paid as much. And
that's true.
Maybe when he's in that, that's the problem we are having.
You look at City and Liverpool... Their backup players aren't players who are sort of never good enough, but, we can't be asked to sell them. It's a constant rotation of people who are trying to usurp the person in front of them. Like, look at sort of Liverpool centre-backs. They got rid of Lovren and players like that. They've got Konate, who one day could be starting, or he is at the minute, starting alongside Van Dijk. You've got Gomez, who one day could be starting alongside Van Dijk. I think Matip's a little bit older now. But, it's players City are the same. They didn't keep hold of Laporte. They didn't keep hold of Otamendi. They got rid of him and brought in Akanji, and they brought in Ake, and they brought in people who I want to be starting every week. Not people who have been here and for the last 3 years are happy to be backup. I think United need motivation from within as well. I think that's a big thing. Your backup left back shouldn't be someone who's just too shit to start, really. It should be someone who thinking, in a couple of years' time, I'm taking this guy's place. And actually, I'll try and do it this season. That's what you need. You need that 100%. Hunger there. And I think Lindelof, unfortunately, is a symptom of a lack of hunger at United. And I'm sure he wants to start every week, but no one who's watching Man United thinks, you know what, Victor Lindelof could start ahead of Lisandro Martinez one day or ahead of Varane one day. It's just not really an option, is it? Johnny Evans.
He's been all right, but it's been just he's helped us tie the season over a little bit with our injuries. Again, if we want to be an ambitious club, there's not many clubs that would keep Johnny Evans on for another season after this.
The thing is,
with the same
we
sort of
shouldn't
goals.
need him. But we might need him.
We
might need him.
But
we shouldn't, but we might.
Let's bring Stacey Solomon in.
Yeah.
Stacey's by this really old sort of Hoover that, still works, still sucks things up.
It used to work when my nan was using it 15 years ago. It worked then. And
but there's a smell now. There's a smell.
There's a little smell.
Stuff is happening. Like, what's going on?
You
Do you need it?
And we're like, well, every time.
Yeah. So we should be getting a new Henry. You know what I mean? Like one that proper goes for it. But unfortunately, we're stuck with Granny's old Hoover. He's done a good job.
Yeah.
I think we should, though, in the summer if possible, replace him.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's all adding up, though, isn't it? This.
I know.
All this money, we've got to buy new players.
Exactly, that's the problem. Aaron Wan-Bissaka's another one.
Love him. Stay.
Do you?
Yeah, I think he's great.
What?
I really like Wan-Bissaka.
Since when?
What do you mean since when? I've never had a bad word to say about Wan-Bissaka.
Not a bad word. No one's got a bad word about any of these players.
I like him. I think he's misunderstood a little bit.
Do you think he's a top quality right back?
Top quality.
Do you think he's good enough?
I think he's good enough to be one of those players in the squad where if we need him, he steps up. He has had good games for United under his belt.
Of course he has.
And he's still, obviously, what is he, young enough, 25? He's in that second contract phase. I still keep Wan-Bissaka.
Okay.
I like him.
Fair enough. Anthony. Young player, kind of ticked a lot of the boxes we're talking about. And this is the thing, it's not just because they're young, they will be good enough. But that, I think you need the right players. Of course, like look at Odegaard at Arsenal, whatever. I think he had a slightly tumultuous career, didn't he? He got signed by Madrid when he was like 15. It was like 40 million quid for a 15, 16-year-old. Then he went out on loan. Then he came back. Then he went on loan to Arsenal. But the quality has to be there. Just because someone is 22 doesn't mean they'll be good enough. Obviously, we're not saying that. And Anthony's kind of proof of that, maybe.
I just think we got to keep him for a bit.
Do you?
Yeah. I just think more, just in case he comes.
What?
Good. I don't know what. If we sell him, how much are we going to get for him?
Yeah, but what if we sell him in another 12 months of this form? If we sell him now, let's say we get 30 million quid for him. Oof. If we sell him in 12 months and he's had another 3 goals, 1 assist season, well, you can half that.
A lot of these signings are interesting because
you paid another year of his contract.
Yeah. You could ask now, because obviously we've got like this amazing new structure of directors. You could ask, would these players be signed under this new board that's going to come into play next year?
No,
probably not.
No,
Anthony's definitely not one of them. We could have maybe signed Anthony, but it definitely wouldn't be for the price we paid. No. Probably be for a very, very small portion, the price. Which I think does or would have helped Anthony. I think this crazy price tag and stuff that's happened outside of football has really hindered him a bit. If we shift him now for 30 million, all right, but I don't know. Actually, shift him. He's shite.
Martial, weirdly, one of the few players on this list who I think, if we'd have gone back, I could see INEOS signing a player like that.
Do you know what? I was thinking that as well.
Very talented player. He's obviously incredible natural talent. Has had a handful of very good seasons for United, but clearly that's
I think
wasn't
I
available.
think the new board would have signed Martial, wouldn't have signed Anthony.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we look back at when he first joined, and it really was such an interesting, exciting period. Stuff has happened since then, but he's still been at the club for a very, very long time. He's had so many false dawns. We're like, this is his season. His numbers will speak for themselves whenever he gives up his time at United. He's done all right. He's not done amazing.
His contract is up at the end of the season, so the only way he's staying is if we extend it. He's not, is he?
I'm sorry, mate, but it's time to go. Wait, how many years he's done? 10 years. Is he done about 10 years at the club? What,
2016 he signed, didn't
he?
Okay.
So
2015,
he's done a while at the club, 8 years.
Yeah, 8 or 9 years.
It's time for...
It might be 2015, actually. Anyway, it's been a while. And then another interesting one is Mason Mount / Malacia. Now, as of today, Mason Mount is back in training.
Brilliant.
Malacia is still not back in training. There are some... I don't know if it's... I would say at this point it's conspiracy because it's based on a limited set of knowledge. But there are some people who are worried that we could be seeing...
Kate Middleton kind of vibes.
Yeah.
You've seen him in the training ground. It's clearly AI. He's photoshopped himself in. with other people around. You go, hold on, they're not his fingers. You know what I mean?
People think Velasquez had his legs removed. In a surgery gone wrong.
He's going to be tweeting going, listen, guys, I do like Photoshop now and again. I'm sorry, it made me self because I don't know where he is.
People
He's
think
gone.
Velasquez but genuinely, people think he might have had a sort of career-altering injury here.
Oh, that's
because he had a knee injury that was meant to keep him out for a handful of months. Then he came back from the surgery. Then during his rehab from that surgery, he had to have another surgery. And then since then, that was, I believe, sort of 3 or 4 months ago now anyway. And since then, he's not really training yet. Ten Hag described his recovery as very slow, which, typically, even a knee injury, it takes a long time to come back. But once the surgery's happened, then you can start, improving.
I guess
once you're back training, usually it's a few weeks. And this is, people are worried that he's had I don't know how to phrase it really. Because I don't know his career's over, but he's really going to struggle with his knee permanently.
Well, of course we're not going to get any football out of him, would let him go, but I feel like no one would want him, so we'll just have to wait till his contract runs out.
Which is what, another 4 years or whatever?
I hope he's all right. I didn't like him. I saw little bits of potential in him. It was like, he's got a good attitude about him. He's always working. He's running like mad, even though sometimes his quality wasn't there. And you're thinking to yourself, right, he's got something about him. So I'd keep him.
Yeah, I think we will.
And Mount, you can't spend £60 million on a player in the summer and just get rid of him after a year.
Casemiro and Varane.
Which one to get rid of?
Well, no. Would you want to keep either of them, both of them? Neither of them?
Oh, it's tricky, isn't it? Because we'd need to be heavily linked with really good replacements because they do a job. Like, what's our centre-back partnership?
Here's the thing with Casemiro and Varane, and we've talked about their age and the issues with the deals themselves, for especially Casemiro because of the length of it, the size of it, all that. But, if you'll excuse the phrasing. But the thing with them is, when everyone's fit, they both start. So it's not just a case of, we've got a third choice centre-back here. Casemiro and Varane are two of the first names on the team sheet for United. So, like you said, the replacement is just as crucial as, the deal ain't right, so let's get rid. We have to think about this.
We have to think about this.
Yeah.
Obviously, Martinez is such an incredible player for us. I'm worried about his style of play gets him into bother, doesn't it? These injuries are brought about because of his sort of incredible tackles and big launches into great one-on-ones. And, I feel like Martinez isn't going to change. So we might always have this great leader on the pitch for a few months at a time, then he picks a knock, and then another few months at a time. So our centre-back is so chop and change at the minute. Maguire, Lindelof, Evans, Varane, and then Martinez definitely starts
playing there for a bit.
Yeah. I think we need a bit more stability.
Yeah.
And I think that includes buying someone in to sit with Maguire and them two be in our centre-back partnerships.
Yeah.
Our centre-back partnership until Martinez comes back.
Yeah.
But I always think the way Martinez plays will always be chop and changing with him, which is a struggle.
I know.
But think about it.
I know what you mean.
When we signed him, back in the last year, we didn't have him because of an injury. We really need him. I look at that FA Cup, and you do wonder, the FA Cup final, would City have scored in the fucking 23rd second if Martinez had led the team a little bit more? When the ball's
bouncing just outside our box, does he come and clean that up?
He would have fucking got rid of it.
Yeah.
So you do wonder how that game would have shaped out. And then most of this season, and including up to these big games now, you're thinking, miss him. I miss him, but it's his way of playing. So I feel like you keep Varane. I'm not too fussed about Casemiro. For next year, but you keep Varane. Yeah,
I think as well Casemiro. If you're gonna sell him, if you want to run down the contract and you want him in the dressing room, I get that. But if you want to get those wages off the bill, if you want to get a bit of money for him, we could probably still get 40 million for him because he's 32 years old. But if he's going to Saudi or somewhere like that, you could see he's a big name who would. He's still got a lot in the tank, really. He's still Premier League level, certainly. And I think he could be a big get for that league in the summer. So we'll have to wait and see. Looking at some players who could come in, Jarrad Branthwaite's one. He's Everton centre-back, 21 years old, 44 appearances for Everton this season. He started every game for them this season so far, which is obviously good in terms of a physical reliability standpoint. Quick player, very strong, physical, young, kind of athletic build.
These are nice links we're getting to players that are young, ready to be part of a squad that has goals and aspirations for 5 years' time, 4 years' time, when we want to be making sure we got our hands on the Premier League trophy again. So I'm happy with this. I think we're getting linked to the right names. Another name we always get linked to, and I still think, maybe he has the point to prove, would obviously be Harry Kane, striking for getting us goals. We're always linked to him.
But he's the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, but he's not proved anything yet. He's got a great goal scoring record, but he looks like he'll come second. He looked like he'll come second this year in the Bundesliga.
He might get the Bundesliga goal scoring record. And not win the Bundesliga.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
So he's got a point to prove, and he might be that Van Persie sort of player. But everyone else we're linked with, it looks like, including Neves, and it looks like they're young and ready for it.
Yeah.
But it looks expensive.
Yeah. I know. Well, that's the problem, isn't it?
Cut that out.
Joao Neves. No, young and ready for it that used to be your Tinder bio, wasn't it?
Young and ready for it. Even when I was, 27.
Yeah, not ready for it, if we're honest.
I was ready for it. You're not ready for it. Get me going. Yeah, put a little bit of pony on.
Yeah, a little bit of compound butter. Joao Neves, 19-year-old midfielder at Benfica. There's a quote from Sky Sports saying that new United co-owner Jim Ratcliffe is set to approve a record-breaking offer of just over £100 million to secure the signing of Benfica teen star Joao Neves. He's a sort of all-action midfielder. One of those people who can do a bit of everything. Great on the ball, good tackler, gets a few goals and assists as well. You sort of all-round, well-rounded central midfielder. Again, I'm not supposing that you watch a shitload of Benfica, but is he the style and the type of player United need?
Numbers like that scare me.
Yeah,
£100 million, record-breaking deal, and he ticks a lot of boxes for the players we've been talking about all show. But again, when you do look at Liverpool and you look at City, and let's bring Chelsea into this conversation. Chelsea have spent a huge amount of money on big midfield.
3 years.
Yeah. And it's not really worked out for them, and everyone loves it. We give them so much grief; it's brilliant. Yeah. And those £100 million signings, they fall flat on their arse. Amazing. City buy in 40, £50 million midfielders, and they bring them up to a great level. I'm worried that there's the attention and the pressure that £100 million for Manchester United. If Neves is, we need to make sure he's up for it. Is he up for it? Because this is going to be an incredible move for you. Obviously, you're going to make a lot of money at a very young age. Have you got that ambition to be the best and want to win Premier League trophies? If the mindset is ready, then bring it on. If we're umming and ahhing a little bit, I think I don't want to sign something just to fall a little bit.
I think as well, you look at, I know obviously Caicedo's got a lot of stick and Enzo's got a lot of stick, but I almost think that United players get more stick for their transfer fee than
100%.
anyone else. More than anyone else. So if you sign a player for 100 million quid as a United player, that's like Liverpool signing someone for 150 million.
Yeah.
Or City for 130 million. Or, whatever. You will get stick like no other. So I agree with you. I think the days of United signing £100 million players, certainly until we've established a winning, successful team, I think those days should be over personally. Yeah,
and like you say, if we're getting rid of all these players, that 100 million could be 2 new players. It could be 3 players if we have a proper great scouting team getting us bargains out there.
Exactly. Right, that's going to be all from us. Thank you very much, Joe, for coming in, analysing the squad, looking at the age of the squad. Do United need young players? Let us know in the comments. Is there a problem with trying to rebuild and regroup and sort of build up a squad and build up trophies and challenging for trophies with a squad that is ageing, where the key players that on the biggest money are our oldest players? I think United maybe need to move away from that. Thank you, Joe, for coming on. Where people find you, mate?
Go listen to Sloppy Joe's podcast, everyone. You'll love it.
Good idea. I'm on that as well. It is very good. If I didn't say so myself.
You'll love it.
Thank you very much for joining us. Hit subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This has been Uncensored. We'll see you in a bit.